We're here in Utrecht at the Blockchain Innovation Conference, and we're here with Michael Eerhart, one of the early adapters in the blockchain space in the Netherlands. So could you please introduce yourself further?
Yeah, so I'm Michael, one of the co-founders of GoBlock, a consultancy and development firm in the blockchain space, working with both corporates as well as startups and ICOs, primarily on their development needs and their solutions design. So personally, I've been involved in blockchain projects for about 5 years now, involved in some of the earlier platform projects as well as mining and currencies. Yeah, and it's been really exciting to be here as well, seeing projects coming to production as well as companies starting to think about their maturity models and, you know, seeing if actually the technology that they're using is set up in such a way as it should be. So that's a really exciting development lately, I think. Yeah.
So what's the current status if we look at the Dutch market, Dutch corporate market? What's actually the current status? It's like testing or...
So from personal experience, we see that a lot of companies have done quite a few POCs by now. So they've been trying out, they've been doing ideas and developing up on them. And they're all basically of the mindset right now that they actually want to do pilots, concrete pilots. So basically put the systems next to their existing systems and see how that goes, if it actually goes as smooth as they expected it to go, and take the lessons there and actually put things into production as well, which we see here at the conference too, where several companies, you know, Rabobank among them, but also Koopman, actually putting the things out there in production, which is really exciting. Yeah.
Actually, in essence, replacing the existing systems, for instance, a database or... in theory,
improving upon them, you know. So it's usually an improvement upon a traditional database. It doesn't have to be a complete replacement, especially in the early phases. I think it's better to, you know, take a traditional database and put a blockchain on top of that as a verification layer, because that's essentially what it is. And yeah, operate it in such a way that's also a more gradual transition in that sense. Right.
What kind of blockchains are used? It's our private developed blockchains, or sometimes also open?
Yeah, so if obviously if you take the examples in this conference, it's mainly private and permission chains. What you do see is that a lot of ICO projects, of course, have that tokens on public chains, but then business logic on side chains, for example, which is a pretty common dynamic where you have that interaction and that swap between the two. So that's interesting, but it is obviously because of the scalability limitations of public blockchains. You see a lot of the actual things and logic, so the smart contracts, and that all happens on off-chain usually, because it's very expensive to do these on Ethereum, for example, which we all know because of the transaction fees and stuff like that. Yeah.
So you won't advise Ethereum in the first place?
Well, I mean, well, you can try it out, but like you see with the apps like CryptoKitties, well, basically one of them hemorrhaged the entire network, which, you know, if there are multiple projects using the actual blockchain, you'll see transaction fees going through the roof, which is not ideal yet, but that may change in the future, of course. Yeah.
Is the development of the Ethereum network a bit too slow? I mean, they're working, of course, on the Plasma update, or are we too...
Sure, yeah, well, like one of the pitfalls of a network like Ethereum is that it actually already has adoption, of course. So it's not like a new blockchain which can just put an idea out there and try it, like EOS, for example. You know, the newer generation blockchains, they don't have an existing user base yet, so they can actually try out things. Whereas if Ethereum would be doing the same, they could break a whole lot of things and cost a whole lot of money to a whole lot of people.
They try to do it a bit with Omi's Go.
Responsibly, you know, just like a regular organization, they have a critical infrastructure, which if it breaks, is going to, you know, basically shut down the entire network. So they have to do it responsibly, and that means it's going to go a little bit slower. Yeah.
You're working on the proposition of GoBlock. You also went to New York on Consensus for GoBlock, I think.
With GoBlock.
With GoBlock. How did it go there?
Yeah, that went great. So it was a very good experience, you know, to see where the industry is at. Also for us as a company, it's really good to see, you know, where the opportunities are and where the needs are, especially. So one thing we found was that a lot of the blockchain projects, so be it ICOs or ideas and, you know, private projects, They are very good in their ideation. They're very good at setting roadmaps and having ambitious goals. But then when it actually comes to development, there are usually a couple of hurdles that they have to overcome, which is very good because that's where we can come in and actually assist these companies with these problems in terms of both development as well as, you know, having them assess their technical propositions, see if they've thought of every possibility. Like KPMG is operating their maturity model, you know, in corporate setups. We try to do the same thing with ICOs to see if they've actually covered all of their bases.
So actually, there's a user case for GoBlock to, of course, do advisory projects by yourself, but maybe also in cooperation with existing advisories.
Yeah, so we obviously like the ABN AMRO market assessment is done in collaboration with PricewaterhouseCoopers, which is interesting. But of course, we also have integration partners. We're actually going to be announcing them soon. So like in terms of development and middleware services, so that's going to be very interesting as well, especially in the more corporate projects where you really need these enterprise plugins, so to say. Yeah.
Just a few questions. Are you guys? I mean, you're brought in like the innovation team in such a corporate, or how?
Depends. So we do multiple sessions. So we do board sessions. We do project team sessions, as well as indeed innovation lab sessions, which usually a lot of the bigger corporates have, where you know all of the ideation happens in innovation labs. So that's where we operate in that sense. Then, where, you know, with the actual projects that are moving towards production, it's usually with the executive teams and
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Lots of good ideas, and based in the Netherlands. So you are becoming like maybe an export service, export product.
So we actually have 3 offices now, one in Amsterdam, one in Leeuwarden, which is in the north, but also one in Colombo in Sri Lanka, where we have a fairly large development operation. So that's also very nice, which recently merged, so that's very good. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
And maybe the last question, because we know you're quite an experienced trader. Maybe your favorite for 2018?
It's difficult. I think it's mainly going to be about actual adoption in terms of partnerships as well as real business development. So I think I hope we're going to be past the hype phase where it's just promises. One project I see doing really well and have seen doing really well in the past couple of months in terms of actual use cases and concrete partnerships in the industry is VeChain. So they are doing supply chain management, but their blockchain is multi-purpose in the sense that you can do a lot more on that. And they have very interesting partnerships. So they're doing, you know, where they usually the consensus was Neo is going to operate in China. You see actually VeChain picking up all of the partnerships in China and the greater Asian region, which is very interesting. But I'm not sure if that's going to reflect in the price, of course, but like that's one project to watch at least. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Michael, and all the best with GoBlock.
Thank you very much as well.
All right. Yes.